Hello internet, and today's video is going to be another book opinion. Those videos in which I tell you my opinion on a book, and today's book is going to be Nevermoor, The Trials of Morgan Crow. This was a fantastic book. I'm going to start off by saying this is 5 stars, and I definitely think this is a book that translates very well to all readers. Like, this was definitely something that I can see my non-middle school grade loving readers being able to read. Now, I hear a lot that people have been comparing this book to Harry Potter, so before I get into it, I'm just going to explain some of my feelings. If you're new and you're just trying to look for this review and you haven't already stalked my videos and kind of figured out what my thoughts are on this book being compared to Harry Potter. I've read Harry Potter. I'm a huge fan. So I think I have a pretty decent idea of how this compares. Now, I never quite like comparisons of one book to another because I think it gets a little bit messy because then people are expecting it to be exactly the same when they go into this other book, but maybe the reviewer was just saying, oh, this is kind of what it reminded me of, but it's not a one-to-one comparison. I think it gets a little messy. So this is how I'm going to explain this book in relations to Harry Potter. I do not think their plots are similar. I do not think the atmosphere, the element is similar at all. But I do think there are two key things about why people love the Harry Potter series that will potentially lead them to loving this. In Harry Potter, it is very translatable to people of all ages. All ages can enjoy it. From childhood to adulthood, you can start reading as an adult and love it. You can start reading as a child and love it. Majority of readers from all ages can love it, unless you're just really particular and then you're lame and you don't like Harry Potter, but that's on you and not on the book itself. So it's one of those books that I think does very well in translating in a way that all readers can find some sort of value in it. I think Nevermoor accomplishes much of the same. Yes, it's targeted towards a middle school grade audience, but I do think it translates so well that as an adult you can still find joy out of it, and even if you don't traditionally read middle grade, you can still really enjoy this book. So in that, I think it's very similar to Harry Potter. The second way I think it's similar to Harry Potter is Harry Potter has this just magical world. It has a world that is so intriguing. A lot of plot holes in the world if you know what you're talking about, but at the same time you're just really invested in this world, learning more about magic, learning more about wizards, learning more about the alleys and the marketplaces, about how things work and why they work the way they do. You really just get drawn into this world, and that is what makes so many people love it. Not just their love for the characters, but their love for freaking Harry Potter world and everyone wanting to visit it. I mean, we have a bunch of studios that are just Harry Potter world. That is something that we love because we love the world. That's why we made those. I think Nevermoor accomplishes much of the same. There are a lot of points in this book where you're just oh my gosh, this world is so amazing. Points where I would want to visually see this world. It has that same benefit of having a world that is very, very intriguing, very, very beautiful to see, and a lot of intriguing concepts that you're oh, I would love to see that, which is very similar to Harry Potter. So in those two cases, in the case that I think this book is translatable to all ages, you can still enjoy it even if you traditionally don't like books made for younger audiences, and the fact that the world is very, very magical and very, very fantastically built, I think this is similar to Harry Potter. In no other ways, but in those sort of broad, general ways, I do think they have some similarities. I really hope that this book continues and this ends up being a pretty decent series and it continues on the path that it is, because I definitely see potential in it. So now on to the actual book, now that I've pretty much cleared up the Harry Potter comparison and given my own thoughts on that. So this book, Nevermoor, is about a young girl called Morgan Crow. She lives in a group of states. She is the daughter of a chancellor, and she ends up in another world, a neighboring world that no one of her states really know about because it's kept secret. This place is Nevermoor. Now, Morgan Crow grew up as a cursed child. It sort of made her special in a way, and she ends up getting blamed for a lot of stuff. So to kind of save herself, she runs off to Nevermoor in hopes of escaping whatever tragedy may befall her if she stays in her own state, right? So she goes to Nevermoor, except she's kind of there illegally. So to get herself into Nevermoor to become a permanent resident, the person who has rescued her sponsors her to go to an elite Nevermoor school, which is the highest of the high, the most elite of elite schools. And to get into the school, she has to complete a bunch of trials and prove that she deserves to become a student. So this book isn't about her going to the school. It is about her attempt to try to get into the school. So the school holds a tournament of sorts, a competition of sorts. It has several different trials, each varying in the degree that it could sort of mess you up. And then you're supposed to complete this task, try to get into the top 10, because there's only like 9 kids who are going to be accepted, and there's a lot of kids trying to vie their way in. So that's what this book is about. I really like in this book how the childhood that Morgan had really affected who she was, right? She wasn't well loved as a kid because she was this cursed child. She was on the cursed child list. She was blamed for a lot of things that really weren't her fault. And even when she gets to Nevermoor and she's kind of being reassured, she really has a lot of self-doubts because of the way she is. She's a very confident kid at the end of the day. She definitely is very determined and very stubborn and is like, I can do this, but I still like how there's still that like self-doubt that is born out of the way that she was raised, because it makes her a more complex and developed character to have her be like the sort of hero, chosen one sort of arc, but still have her having like these self-doubt thoughts and her just really wanting something but not being sure she's ever going to get it, and that has a lot to do with her past. I also like that although this book won't explain some things that we as readers and Morgan wants to know, it's always explained that Morgan is like, I'm gonna let this go for now, but she is very aware when she is not being given information. That is something I particularly enjoy in my characters. I like when my characters are very self-aware of their surroundings and they're willing to ask questions even if they're not going to get the answers. It's something that I had like problems with Harry with. Like, I was like, Go interrogate Dumbledore for a second. Like, you need some answers. Don't just willfully ignore the fact that he won't give you answers. But in the case of Morgan, even though she still has a mentor who's kind of shifty and won't tell her things that she thinks she needs to know, at the same time, she's like, I'm still going to ask these questions. I'm still going to wonder about these things. And I want to know. Like, I will not be put off to the side with you pretending that I don't have a right to know. So, like, all of the story elements, there are a lot of things like you don't really get privy to towards the end, but it's helped by the fact that Morgan is very aware of these things and isn't like willfully ignorant that there are secrets being kept from her, which I think kind of makes up for the fact that you gotta sort of wait for these things to unfold, by the fact that our character is very self-aware of these things. Again, this world is magnificent. There are a lot of properties in this world that are really fun. Like, there's dragon racing apparently, and like there's this character introduced who is a dwarf vampire, and there is a distinction made between dwarf vampires and vampire dwarves, and I kind of like that. The hotel that she stays in is sort of alive in its own sense, and like her bedroom is really interesting because it's always changing. There is like this whole idea of magic and we knowing that Morgan's going to be special in the later books, but not quite figuring out how she's going to be special until later, about like the Wondersmith and like how Morgan fits into all of this. So this book is like part setup, right? Because of course, she's not in the school yet. She's just going through the trials to get in the school. We are not really sure about what makes Morgan special, that she was even invited to be here. but towards the end we sort of start to figure it out. But I think it's a really good setup. I think this is a book that, yes, it is a setup for a series, but at the same time it is a very compelling story in and of itself. For me personally, I rate it as a 5-star book because it just brought me so much joy. I was smiling on every page because I was like, that world sounds so cool, sounds so interesting. I really liked how the character had bad qualities to her, but was also pretty self-aware, how she was very confident and very self-assured, but at the same time had some doubts, and that doubt made sense, right? Like when she was kind of like unsure and was really worried. Like sometimes you're just like, come on girl, you can do it, but at the same time you're like, well, your childhood was pretty messed up, so I can totally understand how those are completely valid feelings. Like, so it was a great mixture. The one thing that I would like to see in further, like in books coming afterwards, is a better relationship with Morgan and the other kids of her age. And a lot of this, she does have a really good friend, but a lot of the other kids are sort of antagonistic, which does make sense because they're in a competition to get into a very elite school. But there are really hints of like that antagonistic nature turning into friendship. So I liked it because I like seeing how Morgan was really the odd one out and how she really rubbed people the wrong way sometimes, because she really doesn't know how to communicate well, which again is completely understandable. So I'm hoping in later books that this sort of first dive into Nevermoor, Morgan can get a little bit more comfortable with her surroundings, and because the initial competition is gone away, that she'll have a chance to make more friends with a lot of different people rather than just the one that she does have. There are little hints that are telling me she's gonna make some really cool friends, which I'm really excited to see. That's the one little thing that I was kind of like, I wish I could have seen a little bit more of, but it was very understandable for the story and for the setup that it was having in this book. So I can't in good conscience draw the book back for setting up something, for kind of introducing us to the story, because again, like, that's something that is very heavily going to be prevalent in the other story. Plus, it really does make sense in the context of Morgan as a person and her being introduced into this world, how it works out with her friendships with other people. So I'm not mad at the book for that, but that is something that I'm hoping will progress in later books, that she'll be able to make more friends and fit in a little bit better and not have this thing over her head that's kind of worrying her and preventing her from being able to establish like really good relationships with other people outside of like the one that she makes, which her one friend that she makes, he's hilarious. I love him. He's like really hyperactive and he's really funny, and he is like there to support Morgan, and it's just a great friendship that I like seeing fostered between these two. So I love their dynamic, and I really just want her to kind of have a little bit more friends. It slowly starts happening towards the end of the book, but yet again, that's something like I'm waiting for in the end. Another great thing that I liked about this was the villain of the story isn't really the villain of the story. Like, he is a character right from the beginning. He is introduced as a character, as someone interesting. So I'm really intrigued by seeing how Morgan kind of interacts with this villain, because we see a little bit of it towards the end of the book. And well, we see a bit of it throughout the book, but specifically towards the end. So I'm really curious to see how this works out, because it is not something that I've seen often in books, where it has the hero, the protagonist, really interacting in a sort of positive light with the antagonist. So I want to make a specific reference. So I'm going to put a spoiler thing right there in case you haven't read it or you don't want to know. So Morgan is like the sort of apprentice to the villain, and I was just like, I was really crossing my fingers and hoping. I was just like, come on, let this happen, let her be like the good guy but also kind of be like bad guy junior. I really wanted to see this mentorship between her and the villain, who's like sort of a little bit more complex than just being a villain. So I really liked when it actually followed through with that, and she ended up becoming a sort of unwilling apprentice to the villain, but at the same time, not her just being purely mean, but her sort of accepting his help in a sort of unwilling way. Like, she's not totally 100% on board with it, but at the same time, she's just like, well, I guess this is happening now. I want to kind of see where this goes. So I really love that, because I like when our protagonists and our antagonists have a sort of teacher relationship, like they're sort of friends, right? Like, not that they're frenemies or anything, but like they sort of build a deeper relationship than just being enemies all the time. So I really like how their relationship works in this, where Morgan is sort of becoming this apprentice, and she's just like, I don't know how this is gonna work. I don't know what's going on, but I'm gonna give it a shot. Like, Morgan really doesn't have a lot to lose, so she's like, well, we're gonna see what's up with him, and we're gonna try to figure out why everyone thinks he's evil. So I really like that. So, hello again to all of you who didn't want to see the spoiler. My final thoughts on this book is, I'm really excited to see where this goes. I hope that this is a very successful series. I want to see what more happens. I really love this relationship between the protagonist and the antagonist. I really love the world of Nevermoor, so I'd really like to go and see a lot more of it. Because of, like, again, the situations that are happening in this book, there are a few chances where we don't really get to explore outside, but ones that are definitely hinted towards being able to see more of this world later on. So I'm very, very excited about that, because there were a lot of things mentioned in this book just kind of offhandedly that I was just like, take me there now. The characters are very, very good. I like Morgan's character. I like her friends and like the different personalities that kind of work. I like just how Morgan is very aware of her surroundings, and that she has a lot of worries, and she explains her worries. Like, it's not just like, I'm worried to be worried, or she's not really angsty, but she has like a lot of fears and worries that kind of influence the way that she acts, and she is very determined to try to get past those, but at the same time they kind of drag her back some, so that it gives a good inner turmoil of this young girl that I think is very plausible for her situation. So Nevermoor, definitely a good book. I want everyone to go buy it and read it, so that hopefully this author can release her next book really soon, and that this will be a great, great story. I definitely think that people of all ages can read this and enjoy this. It does have like very specific middle grade tendencies to it, but I think overall, even if you don't like middle grade, this story just translates so well that I think you can still find some really great things and qualities about this book. It does not treat its readers like they're stupid, so that's like a whole huge plus mark in my book. It has a fantastic world and very interesting characters and very interesting character interactions that are very compelling and nice to see. So I can't say enough about this book. I really like this book. I really do. So I want to see more from this author, and especially in this series, because I got some theories. And I got some like little hopes and dreams of what I want to happen. So I can't wait to see what happens more. I really hope that this does go along that Harry Potter line, where we really get to see Morgan Crow grow, like that Harry Potter Percy Jackson line, where like in each book they get a little bit older, so like they change a little bit more. I'm hoping that this story gets that same treatment, where we get to watch this girl grow and learn more about the world she's in. I think that would be really fantastic. So that's what my hopes for this series. I'll take whatever I can get at this point, but that's something that I'm kind of leaning towards really wanting. So if you like what you're seeing here and you want to continue to see more, click all those bunnies down below, and goodbye, internet.